cool. Oh, I was going to sit and wave. That's cool.
I was like, who wants to lead us? Because Janet's going to set this stream up. But
yeah, I'll start since it's my choice. I'm excited. Hello, welcome to our first live stream of 2022 on the day that we started our first live stream last year, as Zoe has just told us.
Crazy.
I feel like we need to do this on like the 6th of February every year, but then I don't know if it work because that might not be a weekend every year. But
yeah, we need to do it though on the anniversary of our first ever live stream.
That'll be fun. But yeah, so
Legendborn.
The novel bunch is 1 year old.
And you've still got your Christmas tree up.
It's not a Christmas tree, it is just a tree.
Oh, okay.
It's currently decorated, but there's little hearts on it, so it's Valentine's themed. Jake's at the top, he is all season.
An all year round tree. Love it.
I mean,
yeah, I have a Santa above my head, so.
Yeah, we can't really have to go at Nori because I've got like a mini tree about this big, which I got, and it's just sitting on my desk. It's not really a Christmas tree. It's just one I got in a supermarket because I wanted to feel festive, and it's still there because I forgot about it. So I don't know.
Also, when I took it down, there was just a big gap there, and it felt.
Yeah, it feels very even. You know, you got things on one side, tree on the other. No problems.
The lovely watchers. I got a new book. I now have 3 of them.
Meanwhile, Jess has
anyway,
a cat on the other.
I was going to say, I think after a year of doing this, I would have a background that makes sense, but instead you just have my bedroom because I have nowhere else. And my bedroom is
fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, so we all read A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. I've read half of it in my physical copy, which I left at home, and read the other half in my Kindle. So
I had a library copy, so
audiobook. I was sick with COVID at the time.
Yeah.
I've got washi tape on my sleeve. It's chaos in here. Where that came from.
Like a bullet journaler.
Yeah. I wasn't even using washi tape today. I don't know why. Anyway. Yeah, so as per usual, thought we'd start off with our like initial thoughts and opinions and star ratings without spoilers, and then we can go into the thick of it.
The spoiler-free zone thing should be in the sidebar, Janet.
Hang on, banners. There it is. Spoiler-free. Ta-da. Just kind of got to the point. Spoiler-free. Yeah. So who wants to go first? Shall I kick it off, or does anyone?
Yeah, you kick it off. Yeah, if we go
okay. Around.
Janet, Jess, B. Zoe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm probably going to be a bit biased because this is one of my favorite books of all time. So I didn't change my rating. I did keep it as 5 stars, but reading it a second time as a 25-year-old was very different to the first time I read it when I was at school at like 16 or 17. Can't remember exactly. I just remember I was in Paris on a school trip in like 2000 and something. I don't know, when I was 17, 14, 13, who knows? Doesn't matter. But yeah, I feel like maybe it's because I don't reread books very much, but like I don't think I loved it as much as the first time, but maybe it's because I knew what was going to happen. It didn't have that impact, but also with everything going on in Afghanistan at the moment, it was very different. It was just a very different, more like kind of harrowing read a little bit. So that was a lot. I appreciate that there's a lot of stuff going on in this book. So thank you guys for reading it because it's a real fun one. But yeah, I loved it. I think it's a really important book. I think Khaled Hosseini is a fantastic storyteller. He's only written like 3-4 novels, I think, including this one, The Kite Runner. He's also got And the Mountains Echoed and a very short like novella / kids sort of one. What's it called? Sea Prayer. And it's like about refugees, which is also very good if you want a very short read with lots of beautiful artwork. Anyway, I could go off on him, raving about him all day, but I won't. So yeah, I loved it, and I don't really know what else to say, so I will pass it on to Jess.
So I really enjoyed this. I read it actually a lot later than everybody else because personal reasons. I had a lot of stuff going on at the end of January. R.I.P. the bonbon. So yeah, it was a lot, but I really enjoyed it. I'm not really a lit fic person, and that's kind of where I would lump this in terms of genre. I would say that it's historical fiction, literary fiction. So definitely not in my comfort zone. Anyone who knows me knows YA, queer fluff. That's me. But I really, really liked it. I liked the two main characters. I loved Mariam and Laila. I really, really enjoyed them. I liked their relationship, how it developed, the history that both of them have, the two very different backgrounds, and like you said, just the way he writes. Khaled Hosseini is just very, very beautiful prose, but very easily readable prose. Because if you compare it to someone like Madeline Miller, who writes very, very flowery language, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to read it in big chunks. But this I was able to just blitz through in like 2 days. And yeah, it was interesting from a historian's point of view, looking at Afghanistan from the inside as opposed to a Western outside perspective. And yeah, it was politics that I found interesting, which for me is a struggle as well. And litfic, like I say, isn't my thing usually. I don't like character-driven narratives. I like plot-driven narratives. But I think this toed the line beautifully between. So I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be reading more of his work. So yeah.
Yay.
No, myself. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. It was good. I can't quite remember everything that happened because I was listening to it on audiobook. I was sick. And I had caught the COVID. I was lying in bed. It was very lovely.
Nori, your connection is not very good. I can't hear you.
Oh,
no, you keep breaking up. Your voice keeps going out.
Might be because my
headphones are low battery.
Modern day.
Bear with.
Is that better?
I don't know. You're not speaking.
Is this better?
That's better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, it was probably my headphones then.
Yeah.
I gave it 4 stars. Really liked it, but I was ill, so I can't quite remember exactly what the story was about. I was like, yes, this is good. I like it. I'll probably re-listen to it at some point.
Yeah.
It was like sad, but also soothing. I don't know why. I think it was just the narrators. It was like very soothing to listen to people.
God.
I was also like quite sad at certain points. It's like, no, things are going good.
It's one of those.
I just wanted everything to go good for everyone.
That is not life.
It's not how the world works.
Bye bye.
That's my spoiler-free opinion.
It was good and sad.
Yes.
Okay. Who's next? Was it Zoe or Mariette? I can't remember.
I don't mind. Do you want to go, Mariette?
Oh yeah, sure. I wrote stuff down.
Woohoo!
Not much. It's just I tried to make myself write like 100 odd words about every book I read, just because otherwise I forget what they are.
That's a good. Yeah, that's fair enough.
So this book taught me a lot about the Taliban in Afghanistan, to be honest, because I feel like it's a topic that I've heard about loads, but I've never probably tried to look into and find out much about. I kind of one of those things that I sort of naively was like, well, it's over there, it doesn't affect me that much, so I didn't really look into it. So I was really thankful for this book in that aspect, because I just learned a lot about what life was like for different people inside it, in different cultures, which is something I very much enjoy, learning more about that kind of stuff. So it's just really, as I think someone else said, it's interesting reading something from the inside instead of a Westerner's perspective of it, which is really interesting. I thought, what did I say? It was a very sad book, and I wanted things to end happier than they did, but that's the way it is, so I can't really imagine how it would have ended happier, to be honest.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you can hear my family screaming in the background. The kitchen is there.
That's all right.
I couldn't decide on the star rating to give it because I wasn't sure I quite thought it was 5 stars, but I also didn't really want to give it less, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of like, it's a really, really good book, but I can't figure out what I want to rate it star wise.
It's so good it doesn't have a rating. There we go.
Exactly. That's basically the non-spoiler stuff I can say.
Nice. Okay. Zoe?
I gave it, I mean, just a disclaimer, I don't give 5 stars to books easily, so
She's
just
stingy.
bear that in mind. I am. I gave this 4.5/5 because it was amazing. It was such an incredible book, and obviously Janet was set the bar. She set me a challenge, but like, if you don't give it this, I'm going to be sad. And I was like, well, now I don't want to give it 5 stars. But it was amazing. I do have genuinely justifiable reasons for myself why I didn't give it the full 5. I'm not just being a pain. But it was honestly, I'm genuinely not being awkward. I do have reasons. I thought it was just brilliant. I thought it was amazing. Again, without doing spoilers, I mean, again, just because of looking at it from a contemporary point of view and what's happening now, it's quite eye-opening, and it's in some ways incredibly sad because, I mean, non-spoiler, because of when this book was written and not knowing the future, it hits very differently in that perspective. But the story is so intricate and so symbolic and so wonderfully written in such a heartbreaking way, and the characters are just so well-rounded and so damaged and so happy and so sad, and there's just so much about them, and the whole story I just thought was fantastic. So I was really, really impressed with it, and I really enjoyed it. There were a couple of things that made me not give it full 5, but it was very, very close to the mark, and I have to say it was one of the best books I've read in a long time. I have to say it was brilliant. But we'll leave the rest for spoilers, because otherwise I'll spoil it.
I mean, Zoe, I could just sit here and listen to you talk about it all day, because my pride right now, I don't know if it's practice one thing, but you're feeling it.
I know. I was messaging Janet after I finished it. I was like, she's thriving. I can feel it. Feel the ground moving from Russia.
Yes.
So yeah, that's me. I thought it was brilliant. So 4.5, 5, 4.5.
Oh, cool. Well,
I think I gave it 4 on Goodreads because you can't do half stars.
Oh yeah.
I know. Get on it, Goodreads. We need
I know. Come on, Goodreads.
Yeah, Storygraph has it, so why can't you?
Whoa.
Tell me about it.
Shots
The
fired.
shade.
I have passively aggressively wanted to give half stars to things so much.
I know. Honestly.
So my next thing, it's kind of not, well, it is related to the book, but we can talk about it more generally as a topic rather than the book, if that makes sense. You'll understand why in a second. So thoughts on a story about women being told by a man, the age-old question. I don't know if I have another way of trying to phrase it, who knows? Because I think when I first read it, that wasn't really something I would have thought about as a teenager, reading it for my A-levels. I was just I'm just going to read this book. But I also think the fact that it's not only about women, but women who are very what's the word? Oppressed. In the society that they're in. And I don't know if anyone will come at me for saying that. I don't think that Muslim women are oppressed in that way. Being Muslim does not make them oppressed. It's the fact that the Taliban have come in and forced these rules on them that beforehand they had the option of doing things like wearing a burqa, for example, or whatever. So in that sense, oppressed, and written by a guy who, yes, he is from Afghanistan, but he's had a Western upbringing. He went to America in the 70s, I think it was. And has, obviously kept that part of his heritage sort of alive. I remember reading he had visited Afghanistan, had spoken to women in the kind of research for this book. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
You moved to the US in 1980.
I was 80. Okay.
So I suppose what you're asking is, like, how do you think his Western lifestyle has shaped and coloured his writing and his writing of very, very traditional people within Afghanistan and like Middle East and places like that.
Yeah, so, someone who arguably has a lot more privileges. I mean, being able to leave Afghanistan and the war in the first place.
Yeah, because what I found really interesting, I don't think this counts as a spoiler because history, everyone knows the Soviets there. Obviously, you see him being very, very the way he writes the Soviets is quite favourable. Obviously, he doesn't downplay the atrocities that happen with military rule. But you see women being able to teach, women not being forced to wear burqas, women being allowed to wear makeup, do their hair, and not have to cover up. And it's a very liberated way of living compared to when the Soviets leave and the Mujahideen and then the Taliban especially come in and enforce very, very traditional values on women. So they're not allowed to go out without a male escort. Running away is a crime. And the beatings and just that whole list of the rules was horrific. And I knew it was going to be horrific going in because this is something that you study in A-level history potentially and GCSE history is like the Cold War and how the Soviets like impacted different places where they went and like how things changed when they left. And yeah, that was shocking to see how much more freedom women had under Soviet rule. I didn't expect to see that going into it. But it was really, really interesting seeing it from Lila's point of view as well, being such a young girl. To then go from that to life under Taliban rule and being forced into a marriage and things like this. So I found the subjugation of women very difficult to read. But in some ways it was, I don't want to say expected, but like you hear all these horror stories coming out like Malala Yousafzai and things like girls not being allowed to go to school and it being a crime, and it's horrible. And I suppose having grown up in a Western white dominated society where I've got inherent privileges, it's horrific to think of women being treated this way. So yeah, I found it interesting to read, but at the same time it was one of those things of it's horrific, I want to look away but I can't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But while I was listening to it, I kept forgetting what time period it was set in. So I was like, oh, this must have been like ages and ages ago, because also it just reminded me of I read a book last year called The Far Pavilions, which is set in a similar place. It's a giant book. It's like, I also listened to it on audiobook, so it might have been bringing back memories because I listened to this one on audiobook. That one's set like during like colonialism and that, and I was like, there's a vibe here. It's like, this probably set far back. It's like, nope. Here's a reference to something modern-ish.
Like the Titanic, for example. There was a whole section about like, was it the Titanic Park or something?
Yeah.
Titanic City,
Oh, Titanic City, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And like the AK-47s and like very modern things, but you still think, is this in the 50s? Is this earlier? Is this the 1850s? Yeah, it's horrific.
Yeah. I was going to say something and I can't remember what's now. My mind's gone blank.
I hate that.
Just to add on to what Jess and Nori said, it felt like another world reading it in a way, instead of it didn't quite feel like I was reading about a place on Earth because of all of the reasons that Jess said. I've grown up in a privileged situation, and it's really hard to imagine that there are places, even in our own world, that can treat anybody like how the women are treated in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a quote from Lala, like in part 3, where she says, if you'd asked her a year or so ago, or before, like 10 years ago, how much punishment the human body could take, she wouldn't think this much, and she could keep going. And it's like she's going through these streets and she's backtracking on herself because the Taliban have pushed her back or beaten her, and she's gone 3 or 4 times in different routes. And it's just like, it's brutal, but when you're desperate, you keep going. So yeah, it was a tough read. I'm glad I read it in my mid-20s and not any earlier. I think it would ruin me.
Yeah, I was reading it like, why did I read this when I was so young? But I'm also glad that I did, because I think it definitely is an eye-opening book. And I feel like 16, 17 is a reasonable age to read it, but like I wouldn't go any younger than that. Like, I mean, why would you? Like, for starters. But I had my point and now it's gone again. So if anyone else wants to talk over me while I just think about this for a second.
Zoe,
Then chill day.
Say again?
Have you got any thoughts on that, Zoe?
Yeah, sorry, I was just like listening to everybody. I mean, it's no different to what you guys. I think reading it from our perspective, and I think Mariette said, it's so easy to kind of gloss over it as just a story because you're so far away from it, and the distance does create kind of transcends the difference. But it's powerful on its own, and then knowing that a guy from Afghanistan who left Afghanistan and is now probably in a slightly more privileged position than he would have been or could have been, watching him write it so honestly and so truthfully is kind of heartbreaking as well, because you know, it's still within his roots, it's still within who he is, and whether he's possibly, you know, oppressed in the US by certain people because of his heritage, you don't know. So reading it from that point of view and knowing that this is a reality, and it was a reality, and it's now coming back full circle, and it's a reality again, and it's so sickening. And again, coming from privilege, coming from, you know, not having to deal with this kind of thing on the daily or at all, touch wood, you know, it's quite harrowing, and again it's eye-opening to see it. And I think it's sad to ever think of anybody just not being aware of it. And oh, go away, it's a fly. It's some of the things they just talk about so casually, like about being beaten if they're seen outside, or kind of submitting to their fate. It's incredible to think that it happens, and whether it's the Western influence writing it, if it would be any different if someone that didn't have Afghan heritage wrote it, would it be different? Because obviously he doesn't live in Afghanistan, he's not currently in that position that I'm aware of. It says in the book he lives in California, so I'm assuming he's still there. You know, he's been in the US longer than Afghanistan, but he clearly has such a passionate connection to it, otherwise he wouldn't have written this book. So it would be interesting to see if someone with a completely Western heritage wrote it, you know, and I say all they did, but you know, all they do is research it. They don't actually have it ingrained in them. Would it be would it be interesting to see it from that perspective? Because how much does the actual heritage of someone influence it? I don't know. But from reading it from my perspective, having never even been to Afghanistan, enough. It's mind numbing. It's harrowing and kind of humbling when you look at it in that kind of way. So yeah, that's me.
There's definitely argument for that. This is like within history. There's always the question of like gender studies. Can it be written from a male perspective? If you're writing about women and things like that in history, your perspective is always going to shape how you write about it. And this is where you get like the modernism and postmodernism argument of your current perspective and your current situation impacts how you write about the past. So I totally agree that if someone who wasn't of Afghan descent and hadn't lived in Afghanistan for any period of time were to write this, it would have a very different voice to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Khaled Hosseini is writing, I don't want to say romantically, but he's writing.
He's very sensitive, isn't he, about it?
He's very sensitive, and he does romanticize like the good years in Afghanistan, and but he doesn't shy away from the horrors. And I think if someone of Western heritage had written this and tried to write the same story, it would have come across maybe more brutal and more needlessly brutal. I think that he is very, very blunt when he needs to be with the darker plot lines, but he's also very, very subtle with a lot of things. And I think that it has that nuance because he lived it, because he has family that's lived it. It's within living memory. And it definitely shaped how he wrote it. And it's just fascinating to see.
There's a true love of country running straight through it, isn't there? Whereas if someone with a completely third-party perspective wouldn't have that influence, and they would look at it completely, no matter how intensely you research it, and no matter how many weeks you stay in Afghanistan speaking to people, you don't have that inherent love for the country. And
attached,
so it's going to be subjective, because you're just going to look at it from an outsider point of view as something that you haven't and will never have to, hopefully, experience. So you just look at it from a completely outside perspective, and you write what you see. You don't write what you feel or what's running through your blood. So it would be very different.
Yeah, as a side note, I don't know how many of you have read The Kite Runner, but I think those ideas are, well, I can kind of visualize Khaled Hosseini in The Kite Runner more than, well, it's his first novel, but the character in that does also leave Afghanistan at one point. And I think a lot of those ideas that you've talked about, you can see very clearly in that book as well. So if that is of interest, then also read that one. But arguably more difficult, but it's a very different book, although set in Afghanistan as well. Anyway, but I think the fact that he is, actually in all three of his books are set in Afghanistan for at least a portion. I think it does show, like, everything that you've said. Like, he's trying to kind of show his country in the way that he knows it, in a way, and not just, it's kind of like, don't just listen to the news, look at what the reality was, it's not always been a war zone, but unfortunately generations have only seen that, in this one country. And it's really like, well, we'll come on to that in a bit. My screen is doing weird things, but anyway, can you still hear me? I think my computer's still acting up. Yeah, okay. It's been kind of slow today, so bear with. Okay, so my final, I know we've been talking for nearly half an hour, but my final non-spoiler, I hope, bit, maybe this is verging on border territory, spoiler territory, my God. The title. So A Thousand Splendid Suns. This is why I was trying to find that poem, which is the namesake, kind of. Basically, what does it mean to you? Why do you think he chose A Thousand Splendid Suns, other than it being referred to in the book? For me, I feel like just A Thousand Splendid Suns, it just has an idea of hope and hopefulness, and I don't know, something like that. But I'm curious to know your thoughts.
I shared the internet browser screen, so you can add it to the stream.
This is too much technology than I can deal with.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on right now.
I've said it, but I can't, like, I think you have to approve it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, hang on. I didn't realize what was going on there.
Let me just...
Oh, that's so cool.
Let me just try and make it bigger.
I was just waiting for it to happen. Like I said earlier, I always forget that you have to add people and things, apparently. Screen.
Yeah, carry on. I will sort this out.
Yeah, I was just like, what do you think about the title, and why do you think it was chosen, basically?
I think it's beautiful to sing for a poem.
Yeah, it gives a feeling of overwhelming natural abundance.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Ooh, I love
so much, and it's so gorgeous, but it's all like natural. It's not manufactured, and it's... I just love it. I've been watching a lot of tarot videos, and the word abundance comes up a lot. That's all I like. Thursday, interested, it gains lots of sacral and solar plexus energy because of the yellows and oranges. I'm getting really into tarot. Can you tell?
But yeah, I love the, like, it's a beautiful title anyway, and I had no idea how it was going to incorporate into the plot. When it came up, I was like, roll credits.
There it is.
But I love that it's from a poem, and the fact that it was Lila's dad as well, who was a teacher, so he's an educated man, and obviously reads poetry and things like that. I thought it was just a beautiful way to bring it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read the poem, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just reading it now.
I'm reading it, yeah.
I just love that. I mean, I think the whole book, we'll probably get into this later, but it is like an ode to Kabul and Afghanistan, even throughout everything and everyone has endured with all these wars and all this heartbreak, and yeah, I get chills thinking about it, to be honest. Someone else go.
This is so lovely
dragon
about it. But yeah, I think like the prose isn't overly poetic or overly flowery or things like that, but it is definitely, like, say, an ode. So it is sharing his love for his country, for this city, and I think it's beautifully poetic how Kabul keeps coming back. Like, it's never out, and the city rebounds despite all the horrors that it sees, all the fighting, all the death and destruction, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my English analytical side is thriving right now, so I'm going to break it down.
Right. Poetry was never my thing. So.
Oh my god, I loved it. You should have seen my anthology at school. It was literally all just black marks and analysis. I'm not going to go full into it because we could be here for hours. But the main thing that you notice, well, I notice, I'm pointing at the screen as if my finger comes up on it. But the main obvious, what?
I'm going to go on to the. There we go.
Right.
Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is so cool.
Tell me what a point.
All right, so if we're just going, but at the minute, I'm just encircling the poem. Obviously, what we're looking at initially is the fact that this entire poem is just personifying Kabul. Kabul. It's making it a person, but more specifically, it's making it a female, which is quite interesting considering that the entirety of the book is oppression of women and the negative impact of women. So by making this poem, by naming it one of the key lines in a poem that's personifying Kabul as a female, which is making it sound so beautiful and so honored and so wonderful, it's a massive juxtaposition straight away, because the actual contents of the book is a juxtaposition to the poem itself, which is interesting because it just is. We've got obviously, and I guess of how the whole opening stanzas, that's right, isn't it?
Stanza.
Oh my god, I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. It's talking about the land. It's not talking about the people. That comes so much further down. You don't get to man-made aspects of Kabul until the fourth stanza. We have the negativity of man in the second stanza in the last line by saying, "May Allah protect such beauty from the evil eye of man." So it's already predicting the fact that man is going to get jealous of its beauty and want to take it and want to harbor it for itself, which then brings into characters like Rashid, but we won't go into that just yet. So it's incredibly clever how he's titled it A Thousand Splendid Suns, because that's the only line in the entire poem that talks about hiding. So it says A Thousand Splendid Suns that hide behind her walls. That's the only line that shows that these beautiful things are being hidden, and that's quite powerful in itself. Because the moon and everything, you're seeing this rose, you're seeing the tulips, you're seeing the water, you're seeing all of this. But as soon as you talk about the thousand splendid suns, which personify, as you said, hope and a rising of a new dawn, that's what's hidden. And that's quite impressive, because the women are hidden, whether it be through their burqa, whether it be through the religion, whether it be through the control that the Taliban have. And that's the only line that talks about that. And that's what he's titled the book. So it's very clever. Her laughter of morning to the guys who flag gaiety of flowers. It's all I need to stop. It's a personification of her as a woman and how beautiful she is and how magical it is. And obviously where Mariam lives at the beginning is that kind of beautiful area with the willow trees and this opening that's so wonderful and beautiful. Could Mariam be Afghanistan? Oh my God, I don't know. Oh, I need to stop. It's just very beautiful, and so I'm going to round up, because otherwise this is going to be long. But the fact that Kabul is personified here as a female, and the women in this are so juxtaposed to the women in this, but then obviously A Thousand Splendid Suns is the only thing that's hidden. Rashid is the evil eye of man. Let's move on, because I need to stop.
Before, Jess, can you send the link to this in the chat, please?
Can I what?
Can you send the link to this poem, please? Yes. Okay, I forgot that I was on full screen. I was like, how do I go back to the things? What? Anyway, anyone have any other thoughts on that?
I think that we said it all, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think I could add anything else.
Sorry.
That's okay. It was really cool listening to what you talking about, what you know.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is kind of in addition was, we're talking, I don't know at what point this was before the live stream, but me and Jess were talking about when did he write? Was he around in the 17th century? Was that right?
17th century, so you're talking 1600s. So
yeah.
I thought you meant Khaled Hosseini. I was like, I definitely wasn't.
Yeah, he's a time traveler. No, I think it just shows like, I'm not like a massive, like, I'm not big on patriotism. Like, I mean, I'm talking about the UK here. But like the fact,
Jesus Christ.
It's so clear that like how, I mean, obviously Afghanistan is such an old country, but even then and now, like, there are people who have probably endured very different things from the 17th century and then now, but there's still this love for the city in very different ways, but there's still like not necessarily a similarity, but I don't know, there's something that's what kept the city alive then is probably the same as what keeps it alive now. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, there we are. That's my 2 cents. But yeah, so I feel like we've been talking long enough in the non-spoiler zone, which is probably some kind of a record.
I think so, yeah.
But here we are. So shall we do non-spoilers? Because
spoiler zone.
The spoiler zone. Okay. So yeah.
Talk about Mariam.
Yeah, so literally I've got Mariam as a topic, Leila as a topic, the men.
The men.
So, we can talk about like the character specifics, or we can talk about all of them and not really have specific questions. We can start off with Mariam because she kicks off the book, doesn't she? She's our first character. Hang on. I would say arguably she endures the most out of everyone. Like obviously Layla has a very different upbringing for starters, but it's much more like, again, as Western readers, we might look at it and be like, oh yeah, she's got it so much easier than Mariam did, which I guess she does because she didn't have to marry someone. I mean, she does marry someone way older than her eventually, but like that's not like her sort of set path in life. Her dad and both her parents, I think, were very much like, you can get an education, you can do what you like, there's no rush, like,
it's super circumstantial for her, isn't it, as opposed to exactly expectation.
And I think Mariam is dealt a very, very bad hand very early on. The world is out to get her, whereas Layla, she just has a lot of bad luck, but later on in her life, they both have very, very, like, if you were to like stack it up how many things they go through, they probably go through a very similar amount. Let's just say that cesarean section.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Was one of the bits I forgot about when I read this.
But the decades of systematic emotional abuse that Mariam goes through, not just from Rashid, but from her own mother, from her father, and from everybody except Mullah Faisallah. She gets so much emotional abuse, and it's a wonder that woman was still going.
Yeah. And
Like-
I mean, one of the things I've put, other than enduring so much like heartbreak and just everything that could go wrong does go wrong for her, is she's never a mother, but she is such a mother figure to not only Layla but Layla's kids, or more of an auntie, I guess, but still, like, I don't know, the fact that she still has so much love to give is just, I don't know.
I think you could probably argue she has so much love because she wasn't shown love herself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you could argue that potentially.
Well, she's shown love really for the first time by these children, and she can't compute it because she can't process the fact that these children love her unconditionally. You know, she's submitted herself to being this old, married, hated woman that just, you know, doesn't.
Yeah.
She, you know, she's abused and she's just a punch bag for Rashid, and then she looks at herself and thinks, you know, she doesn't have any kind of pride in herself either, but yet these children just love her unconditionally, and it's so overwhelming to her that it's the first thing that ever brings her joy. It's the first part of love that she sees, really. And
with Aziza, when she grips her finger, and I think it's after that she stops referring to Layla as the girl. Before that, she just refers to her as the girl. But as soon as that night has happened, when she finds Layla and Aziza on the floor downstairs sleeping, that's when she starts referring to Layla by name. I thought it was heartbreaking but beautiful.
Yeah. I just love them both.
Mariam has my whole heart, I'm not gonna lie. I just feel for her so much.
Off topic, but it's amazing to hear how the names are actually supposed to be said, because in my brain they were gibberish. So I've just spent the first 30 seconds putting the names to the gibberish ones I created in my brain. So continue, but it's very enlightening.
It's Mariam and Layla in my head, just because that's how I listened to it, read it in my head.
I always said, well, the one that I struggled with, and it's in my head, is Mullah Fizullah, but I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I don't know.
17-year-old me read it like that, so now 25-year-old me is reading it like that.
I'm the audiobook pronunciations, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best way to do it, arguably.
I do recommend the audiobook. It is beautifully narrated.
I
struggle with it a little bit, but yeah.
What was I going to say? I've got generational differences written. What do we think? I'm just going to throw it at you because I've kind of forgotten what I meant, like, by half of my notes here. Okay, here's a question. So I feel like reading it again this time around, it felt so much longer than like it actually is, if that makes sense. Like how much he manages to pack into, was it like 300 or 400 pages? Like you feel like the time moving from the 1970s up until 2002 or something when it ends. Like it feels like you're going through everything, even if he just mentions it like a little bit here, and then suddenly it's like 5 years later, and like I don't know, the way that the time works in this was interesting. Also, having two narrators and then what am I trying to say? The chapters. What's in part 3 when they're like it's both of them at the same time talking in one thing. I quite liked how he set up this whole way of telling the story. So like we really get to know each of the characters in depth in the first 2 parts, and then part 3 it's them together, and it was really interesting because I don't know, for me I was like, oh well, they're probably gonna end up knowing each other in some way, but I wasn't expecting Mariam to be so like harsh towards Layla, or as harsh as she is. Why is it hard to say? As harsh as she is. There's too many S's and Sh's in that sentence. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else was surprised, you know, how like sort of hostile she was at the beginning.
Yeah, massively.
After their wedding. But yeah, I kind of assumed like, oh well, maybe she'll be friendly because she has a companion, and like that does happen eventually. But yeah, it was surprising that she's suddenly so not controlling necessarily. I mean, she's kind of controlling a bit, but she's so like protective all of a sudden, and she's like, she doesn't want to share her husband, even though it's the total norm for a man to have more than one wife. Plus, I mean, it's obvious that they don't have a good relationship at all. So yeah, it was just interesting. I wonder if it's, I mean, what do you think? Is it because she's never really had anything to herself, and now she's got a house and a husband, and she has to share everything that she's so used to, like, not having to do that? I don't know.
I found, like, with me, the continued thing of me not reading the blurb of book club book, so having not entirely sure what I get into when I start reading the book, I got confused when Layla started talking, and I also got upset because I wanted to keep hearing what was happening to Miriam. So like, so the juxtaposition of the two voices also got me, because Miriam obviously at the start is all hopeful, and then as soon as you swap to Layla, Miriam's life is starting to go downhill. She's starting to be stuck in a situation she does not want to be. So like the change in the two voices caught me off guard as well. So because they were two so different people, and I don't think it necessarily surprised me when Miriam wasn't open to Layla, because Miriam's made the life out of the best situation she can, and now her husband, who is a horrible man, has basically made up a story to get Layla to stay with them, and she has no say in the matter. So her small life that she was comfortable with and contained with has suddenly got bigger, and she had no say in it. So it didn't really surprise me at all when she started being cold towards Layla, because like that was the only control she had over the situation. She had no other control apart from to be cold towards her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it was like her husband was the first thing that she ever had that was hers.
Yes, exactly.
He's horrible and he's abusive and everything. It's the first thing that is hers legally. Ever. Like maybe apart from her mother, like it's the first thing that's hers. Even her mother was cold to her, so she's going to fight tooth and nail for what she thinks is hers, even if he's horrible to her. But then I think, like I say, as soon as she sees that Lila is struggling as well, she softens up and the maternal instincts kick in, and it's really beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Sort of like Ariane goes from like, oh, I'm this man's wife, I have certain privileges as a wife in the household, to he's got a nice new wife now, I have been basically demoted to servant. There's like, so I'm going to have a bit of not liking this person who's basically taken my place and now can provide him with something I couldn't.
Yeah.
That whole internal meh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you go right back to the beginning, when she's used to being called like a harami her entire life, like you're just a bastard child, you're not loved, no one cares about you. Like, I mean, it makes sense, you know, the way that she acts, everything that she's gone through. Like, you know, it's I mean, I know I was surprised, but like it's kind of like it's not surprising when you break it down, if that makes sense. Like everything that's built up to that moment.
Yeah. And if you look at it in the sense that when she was growing up, she was never chosen by her father either. And, you know, obviously she was guided away from her dad by her mother. And you never actually fully know whether she was telling the truth or whether he was telling the truth. And that's kind of a conflict in itself. But, you know, she was never chosen by her father. She was never chosen by her mother, although we kind of explored maybe she was, but, you know. And then it's kind of a mirror image of when she's a child and she goes to, when after what happens to her mum, she goes to her father's house and she's hostile to the children there too, and to the various wives, because they are who her father has picked. And, you know, she's finally then given away, she makes her peace with it to some degree, and she's with this horrible man. But, you know, like Jess said, he's hers, and the wife says, doesn't he, he's very keen on you, or he's very keen to marry you. And, you know, I know, gross, but, you know, that's probably the first time that she's heard that he's actually keen on you. You're who he wants, and you're who he wants to marry. So and she's like, I could make a happy life with Rashid. I'm going to be the perfect wife. I'm going to cook for him, I'm going to clean for him, I'm going to do everything that's expected of me because he's chosen me. And but then, Layla comes in, and then all of a sudden she's no good anymore. I mean, she kind of always knew she wasn't to him, but that's not her fault, that's his fault. And all of a sudden this new person comes in, and again she's suddenly not being chosen. He's choosing someone else over her, and it's just kind of a full circle sort of reaction of every guy that or person of that she's held in high regard in her life, or anyone that's meant anything to her. She's suddenly back in the front step of her father's garden again when he didn't come and see her, and the hostile reaction to that is then being horrible to the person that's being chosen above her. But when obviously as you explore more of their relationship, you realize that it's not necessarily Layla's fault, and therefore they kind of build a bridge.
Yeah, and you could also say as well, like, she's saying like, oh, he's chosen me, I can do all these things, I can provide for him, but the one thing he wants her to provide is the one thing she can't do as well. So imagine having to deal with that as well. Like, it's, she's probably thinking like, there's obviously something wrong with me, I'm cursed, or I'm like just so unlucky, which, I mean, she is just very unlucky. But I don't know if anyone else has any other comments on that, because I was going to talk about Mariam's mum's view on men, particularly Mariam's dad. And I guess as she gets older, she has a very sort of hostile view towards her dad after everything that's happened. He's like, you have to marry this old man. Well, he's not really old, but older. And it's interesting because obviously at the beginning, I don't know if any of you felt this, like reading about, what's his name? Her dad?
Jalil or something.
Jalil, yeah. I remember reading it for the first time, being so hopeful that he was going to sort of pull through and be the good guy, because that's how she views him. She's always so excited to see him every Tuesday afternoon, and he always comes, and then it's the day when she asks to go to the cinema and he doesn't show up, and it's like that's the first time, maybe there's a bit of doubt, but she's still like, no, he's my hero kind of thing, as any child hopefully would with a reasonable father.
Maybe it's just me being cynical and having experienced it, but I didn't step up at all. I've been there too many times.
I wasn't sure because, like, he only ever came to see her. He never invited her anywhere. Don't get me wrong, but like at the same time, because we were reading from her point of view, and she wanted him to be good so much. I wanted him to be good. And my heart broke when she was trying to get. When she walks up to his house, and then she's sitting outside, and then she finally breaks in to find out that he was there the entire time. Like, my heart broke for her in that moment. I was just like, because obviously we're reading from her point of view, so I was feeling her hopefulness and her love towards him and her everything. So I think I felt her heart break in that moment. Yeah. I was just so sad when she was driving back. And,
I definitely agree with that. I've just been burned too many times before to not be cynical. My father figures, and I was just like, he's gonna stand. But that's just
But then he does try and redeem himself at the end, and that's even sadder. Because when Layla reads the letter at the end, oh my goodness me, I was like, no. And the whole thing with Pinocchio, and I was like, this is so sad.
Yeah, because they have no idea. No. And then that's the one thing Marianne wanted to do.
Yeah, you can but hope that they reunited in the afterlife or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's almost like, it's not really the miscommunication trope, but like you can think of it as like they're just missing each other, like, because there's obviously that moment when Mariam goes to his house and then he's, not seeing her. Then he goes to her house and she doesn't want to see him. Then Mariam and Rashid go to the hotel to try and call the dad to get the money, which he did leave her, but she didn't talk to him. And then eventually, like, Layla goes and gets that box and has no idea what it's for. But anyway, but I don't know what I was going to say. Any other thoughts?
I think no, you go, Mariette. No, you go.
I was just thinking as you said that in that moment when we're reading it from Layla's point of view, and Miriam's dad is outside, everything, I just was like, next chapter, I just want to know what's going on in Miriam's life right now. Like, Layla, I'm very sorry, you're very interesting, but her dad's outside and I want to know what's going on through her head. That was all I wanted to say there. It's just, I was just like, please, no, we don't get to know. And then we find out later in the book, but I was just at that point in the book, I was like, I just want to know what's going on in her brain. Why aren't we switching?
Yeah. I loved that flashback when you found out why he was parked outside.
Yeah.
That was really, really lovely in a really terribly sad way. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of imagine like Mariam sort of in the moment feeling quite empowered, being like, you know, payback time kind of. But actually, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, the way that Hosseini sets things up to like then come back later in the story. So obviously, Lila notices the car outside, but then like 150 pages later, Mariam is talking about it and just going, oh yeah, he came to see me, and he's just like, oh, so it definitely was him. Like you knew it was him, but also you get the confirmation.
Yeah.
And same with Tariq. When Tariq came back, it's just like, I recognize this person. Where do I recognize them from? Ah, well. And then about 50 pages later, he comes back into the story proper, and it's just like, ah. So just the way that he puts things in, and like even Lala's mother, Fariba, like how she knows Mariam and how that comes back into the story later on, and her sons, like the little details about her son, like Noor with his patch of hair on his ear or something like that. It just keeps getting mentioned and brought back, and I thought that was just beautiful, like the way he peppers things in.
Oh, peppers, love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like actually in Transcendent Kingdom, because she does that, doesn't she? She talks about something that's happened in 28-year-old, I've forgotten her name, Gifty. Gifty? Yeah. And then it's explained when we go back to 13-year-old Gifty. But at the time when you're reading it, you're like, why? What happened at the party? And then
and vice versa.
Later.
As a kid is explained by adult Gifty and things like that.
Yeah. It's an interesting way of doing it, isn't it? Because it keeps you like wanting. I mean, so it's a tactic to keep you reading, but it's an effective one for sure.
It's very effective.
Very effective.
So I thought since we're bridging onto this topic anyway, ready for the topic of the men.
Oh,
let's do it.
There is two good men in this book.
The orphanage guy, the orphanage owner. What's his name? I can't remember. But he's not really a main character.
Four.
And there's say four.
There's Tariq's father. There's Lila's father, and then the guy at the orphanage.
Yeah.
There's 4 good men in this entire book.
Oh, there's the nice chauffeur who's like, let's not go see your mum. It's like, oh no, we're going back in the car now. It's like, why can't I go see my mum? Back in the car. He's all right.
Oh, and Mullah Faisalah is decent.
His son.
and to be honest, his son's pretty decent too. So we're actually kind of contradicting our point here.
7.
The main,
but the bad ones are just so bad that you forget about all of the others. Like her husband. I'm gonna need someone to say his name for me before I start speaking. What's their husband's name, please? Rashim. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like Rashim is awful. Like he pays someone to come and lie to Layla to get Layla to stay there. Like I thought it was horrible, and I kind of saw it coming, but it was horrible.
He's a nasty piece of work.
He makes up 7 bad people to the 7 good people.
And there's all the Taliban as well, so does balance out.
7 bad people.
I
7 deadly
thought
sins.
Somewhere in the multiverse, there's a story that's been written, which is Marianne's story, but it ends up with her marrying Mullah Faisalah's son, and it's like a romance story. Somewhere in the multiverse, that is a thing.
I mean, can you imagine? Oh, how perfect would that be?
I did think that for a bit.
We'll write the fanfic.
Oh my god, this book is so not a fanfic kind of a book.
But yeah, Rashid is the worst.
Yeah, sorry, Jess, we can't take like YA fantasy, etc. It doesn't
so
quite
not that kind of a book.
I will write the romance. No,
that's funny. But so okay, going sorry to go away from the fun of YA fantasy fanfic because I would love to talk about that. But that's probably a topic for another day. Okay, so let's talk about Rashid because I feel like that's going to be a big topic. And it's probably, I'm surprised we haven't really spoken about him all that much, really, until now.
What did you say?
The worst.
I was stuck in my headphones. I didn't hear it.
Sorry, Rashid.
Oh, him, yeah.
The worst.
Have you read a character written so well as a bad character? Other than, well, I was going to say Umbridge, but I feel like movie Umbridge
Heathcliff
in the books, but you know, that aside.
Oh, God,
hey,
it's not subtle.
But what I find so interesting is like
Yes, I have.
Who said that?
Ooh,
sorry.
Zoe.
Stoner's wife.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good one. That's true.
She was horrendous.
Mm-hmm. If you don't know what we're talking about, that could work. If you don't know what we're talking about, last year, February, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2021. Scroll through the archives on our channel, you'll see that discussion. But yeah,
on my channel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is it on your channel?
Oh, it's on Jess's channel.
Ah, okay, fair enough. Well, on Jess's channel then. I forget you. I have to point to my left, but it looks like you're on my right. Yeah. So, what is interesting? Obviously, he's going to act all gentlemanly at the beginning. All gentlemanly, kind of, not really. You know, better
I
than.
don't think he ever acts like a gentleman. I'll be
There's
honest.
Guys,
trigger warnings with this one.
Yes, there are several, including domestic violence, domestic abuse, rape, every kind of abuse you could imagine, really. Name calling,
arranged marriage,
yeah. And she's what, 14 when that happens? Basically a child marriage. Like it's pretty full on. Yeah.
Put together a comprehensive list, tweet it.
Yeah, it's probably Googling all the trigger and content warnings before you read it, because I feel like it suddenly happens. And suicide as well is mentioned.
That's true.
A lot of death. Yeah. So definitely worth checking those out if that is something that might be, you know, you're not sure of if you want to read about those topics. But yeah, I feel like the real like Rashid, I don't know, the bit that stands out for me the most in Mariam's chapters anyway is when he forces her to eat stones. Like that bit's so vivid in my head. That
was horrible.
Yeah, because she cooked the rice in the way that he doesn't like it, or I don't know. I think he was just being really picky. Like it's not that hard to cook rice. I'm sure she did amazing rice.
Baby with too much power.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that bit I think it's like because it's right towards the end of her section in part 1 as well. It just leaves you on a sort of not really a cliffhanger, but kind of a cliffhanger a little bit, like as to.
Which is why I wanted to keep with her voice and was confused when Layla appeared, but that was my own fault for not reading the blurb.
Because isn't the next? It's like a massive time shift after that, isn't it? She's like a lot older after that. I think that's the last thing you hear of her as her young self.
Yeah, because it's coming towards the end of her chapters. It's when Layla's born. And then obviously Layla's chapters start, and it's kind of talking about her life growing up until when she's how old is she when
you go back to her at like 30ish, don't you? Because Lila's about 15 again.
Yeah.
So you go back to her about.
It's about.
She's 60 odd.
Lila in 1979. So 1979, 89. 1991, 92. Yeah, she's about 13 in 92, 93, 14. So yeah, 93, 94 is when she marries, so she's 14, 15.
Yeah, because I remember when Mariam sort of clocks on that Rashid is acting all nice and whatever to Layla after everything, after the bomb happening in her house, or the explosion, whatever it is. And she clocks that he's only acting like this because he wants to marry her. And then he's like, well, you were 14 yourself when blah, blah, blah. So it's just they're like, ugh, what a horrible man.
And he's way into his 60s then, but isn't she 9 when we first meet Layla, when she starts doing our chapters? Because Tariq's 11 and she's 9.
Yeah.
So it's a little while later after that, but yeah, he's definitely in his 60s when he marries Layla, and she's 14, 15. Yeah.
And it's interesting thinking about how much this book is about survival at the end of the day, because I mean, like, we're talking about Mariam and she's doing everything she can to survive in the situation that life has thrown at her. Layla only marries Rashid because she's already pregnant with someone else's baby, and she has to because she's got no other choice. And then the rest of the book really is just about their survival in this really tumultuous time. Big words from Janet. Tumultuous. Have I even said it right? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So Rashid is horrible, and we hate him.
He's horrible to everyone except his son.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about him as well.
Like, finally, I have everything I wanted in life.
He's an Afghan Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Literally, all he wants is a son, and as soon as he gets a son, everybody else is immaterial, and it's just like nobody has any worth unless they have 2 different chromosomes.
Yeah. And it's I think I was saying to Zoe towards the end, when Tariq has reappeared out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not dead." And then obviously Zalmai is like, "Who's that weird man? I don't like him. He's very suddenly very, like, And then in that point, it kind of goes from Layla and Tariq reconnecting, and then they're at the dinner table later that evening, and Zalmai's like, "Oh, like Mum had a friend over, and it was a man, and like, you know, he took her burqa off, and he saw her face." You know, he's kind of like ratting on them, but the other bit that really sticks out. There's a few, but this one bit sticks out in my head is when he realizes just how much he's thrown Layla under the bus in that situation. Because he's like 5?
Yeah, because his face.
Yeah, and he's just there like,
see his face dropping.
Yeah. And that just, I could picture that so clear. I was just there like, oh man, I just want to give him a hug. I just want to get him out of there. Like, you know, because it's...
I want to get him out of there so he doesn't become like his father.
Yeah, and it's a shame because as horrible as Rashid is, like it sucks that he loves Zalmai so much because he is a good father to him in some ways, and he's shown him so much love, but it's only because he's a boy. And it's not like he doesn't deserve that love.
Yeah. The whole reason he didn't come in the first place was because he was stinking drunk and let the boy drown.
Yeah, exactly. And 100%. It's like, even though because you hear that from, is it Layla's mum who's like, "Oh, did you hear?" Something about
it kind of affected. It starts making you resent Zalmai as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because he idolizes his dad so much, and then he throws his mum under the bus and everything. You start to resent him.
But in a way, I'm not sure I ever started to resent him because
I did.
He is, as you say, he's very young. He's grown up in this situation where his dad rules everything, and his dad has treated him like a king. Yeah. So, like, basically he's saying, "My mum was with another man. That can't be allowed to pass." But it's the way he's brought up, so I don't necessarily feel resentment towards him. I kind of feel sorry for him more than anything else because he's been brought up like that, and he's not realised what, because he's 5, he shouldn't have to realise what his words
and he doesn't know
necessarily do to other. Well, he does need to realise they hurt people, but he shouldn't have to deal with worrying about the fact that if I say the wrong thing, my father will beat my mother. Like, that shouldn't be a worry of a 5-year-old boy.
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't. But I think when you first meet Zalmai, Layla says, doesn't she, when Rashid's not here, he loves me and he wants me all the time and he gives me cuddles. And as soon as Rashid comes back, he hits me. He's horrible to me, and it's like it's learned behavior from Rashid that's when Rashid's around, that's how he should be treating Layla.
Yeah.
So it's resentment towards Zalmai, but it's kind of in the way it's like a tangent or a different way of, it's actually your resentment to Rashid, but it's
and it's like if I do these things, not only is it because my dad's doing them, but he'll sort of praise me for doing the things that he does. It's like yeah, he hits my mum, so I can hit my mum, and he'll be there like, yeah, good job, I'll give you a gold star. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get another day with me at the shoe shop.
Yeah.
But then when Rashid's got Layla up against the wall, he is screaming, isn't he, to try and get him to stop beating her, because he just sees his dad fighting his mum, and that's it's.
And
so you're right, Mariette, in that respect. It's just right that he's 5. He shouldn't have to have this
trauma.
Moral, trauma is the correct term.
If I remember correctly, he does also love his sister, because he's like, "Oh, are we bringing her home now?" Actually, Rashid's like, "Let's sell one of the children."
Honestly, that plot through of the daughter being given to the orphanage because they could not afford to have 2, I was just like, oh my god.
I did think at first they were going to a brothel, though.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the orphanage. I'd completely forgotten about that section. So I was just like, hang on, what's happening? But it's interesting because in a way, it's not a good situation, but it's kind of one of the better things that happened, because at least you can have some kind of an education.
Even if clandestinely.
Yeah. And then obviously then when they come back to Kabul after, you know, everything, they go and visit and they can help out and they can do things, you know, so they've got a place where they can go and sort of socialize with other people and have some kind of normalcy, but it's not really, but it's close enough, if that makes sense. But there we are. That's what I have to say on that. But
before we move off Rashid, I think his death was fitting. Just before.
Oh my god! Yeah,
we haven't talked about that yet. The way it just was fitting. It was quite satisfying as well, to be honest. But it's just very fitting.
Yeah, and the way that Mariam deals with it, like she knows instantly that what she has to do after she's killed him, and she's, you know, like again going back to sort of her being such a loving person, you know, and she's telling Layla, like, you know, we're going to go to somewhere like Pakistan, we're going to cross the border, you, me, the kids, Tariq, we'll all go, or you'll go. I can't remember how she words it, but you know, Layla's there like, yeah, we'll be together as one happy family and it's all good. But then the next day when she's sort of like realizes that Mariam's just saying those things as a comfort, she's like, you know, Mariam, you're not going anywhere. Oh, it's so sad.
I sent Janet the longest ramble about that bit. I'm going to have to try and provide it. But
yeah, I was trying to think something else earlier and I was just like, we were talking about this for ages.
But we're talking about horrible guys and that thing. The guy that sells them out at the bus stop. Oh my goodness me. I was so cross. I thought you were joking. No way.
He's the second worst guy.
Because he seems so nice. So I was just like, yeah, go on.
Marianne's father's the third.
Yeah.
I just, because I was like, oh, they're going to get out. The rest of this book is going to be them getting their new lives, and we're going to see how it gets built up and their lovely little family together. And
we're going to see them
and they get like boarded in rooms for 3 days. And I was like,
yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
That was another bit that I'd forgotten about, and I was like, wait, I don't remember this part of the book. When did they go to Pakistan? And then I was like, oh.
Yeah, because I thought, there's not much more that they can do with the narrative in the book of like Mariam gets up and she cooks and she cleans. Like, you're not seeing that. There's a lot of the book left. So I thought it might not be perfect. I didn't expect it to be this perfect life they were going to get. I wondered because they've talked about the camps in Pakistan. So like, okay, so they will get to Pakistan. They're going to have to try and survive in these camps and being immigrants, and then they know that Rashid's going to be after them. So I was like, that's fully what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I was so cross. Joking.
And then when obviously then they go back home, and then Rashid locks her in a room with Aziza for however many days.
So long,
like 3 or 4, but I can't remember.
It's a long time.
I fully expected Aziza to die. I was just like, a baby not survive this.
Yeah, because it's not, you know, and it would make sense because it's not actually Rashid's child.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's the one thing that Layla has from a previous life. It's the one thing she has to keep hold of. Like, it's going to be taken away from her. I just know it. Like, all not kind people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am one.
honestly.
But
I think as well, not knowing what was happening to Marianne at that time as well.
Honestly, I would have really wanted to know what happened to her within those 3 days. I would have liked like a bit more, maybe like shorter sections of them, maybe swapping to her and just seeing how she was doing, because all we know about her is that she was locked in a shed, and I just want to know what her thought process. So that's the thing about split books. I really enjoy reading them from different people's points of view, but there are just points where I'm like, no, I want to know what the other person is thinking right now, and you don't get it, and it just upsets me.
Real quick side note, it's not related at all, but if you like books with lots of different opinions and things and it jumps all the time, Daisy Jones and the Six is a great one, because it's like an interview style and it's all written out and it has all of their opinions about everything at the same time, kind of, but it makes sense. So if you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend.
Okay.
Anyway, back to this one.
To be honest, the pacing of the book was one of the things that made me not give it 5 stars. I was meant to say it to you earlier when you were talking about it and the time period and how much time it covers. That was actually something that I didn't really like. I think, well, no, that's not. I did not like it. It just wasn't. It just wasn't my favorite bit. I think when a book tries to cover so much ground like that, I sometimes feel as if so much energy is put into the beginning when you're building it up and you're in that time period, and obviously Mariam goes for she, and then they suddenly need to get to 2002 or whatever it is. It just suddenly feels like they're like, let's just rush it, get it. And then at that point I found the differing perspectives quite jarring. And then at the end, when it's a different point of view, when it's Layla, but she's a different, can you see the fly? Did you just see that?
I did,
yes.
When Layla's doing it, but she's speaking in a different
present tense.
Thank you, Jess. That I didn't like that. I was like, no, why are you doing that? And I felt like I kind of got it from a symbolic point of view, because it's like the start of her, but that's what made me that's what kind of made me lose it a little bit, because it's like the whole shift in time just suddenly happened far too quickly, and it was suddenly like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and all of a sudden it's 2000 and the Twin Towers are going down, and I was like, whoa. Or 2001, sorry. And
that is also the reason I didn't give it 5 stars.
Pacing was just because I couldn't. We skipped too much time, and I kind of wanted to know what happened in that time. The main issue I had with this book is I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about the different periods of time. I wanted to know more about what was going on in each other's heads when you switched to the other person, like. Because I feel like I said it before, where I wanted to know what Miriam was thinking, but there were points where I wanted to know what Layla was thinking as well. So that's my main thing, is just I wanted to know more. I just wanted to know what was happening through the times. I wanted to know what's going on in both of their heads. I just wanted to know more.
Nori, what did you think about it? You said you didn't give it 5 stars because of the pacing.
It's just sort of like something that I know quite a few books have, and it's like I quite like, but it's just not quite my favorite style of writing. It's very much a personal thing. It's like, wait, I want to dig into this. It's like, I want to dig down into this moment and all the little things here, like a little mole. I don't want to be catapulted to a different field. I'll be very confused.
I love that.
But then I get accustomed to the new field I've been catapulted to, and I'm having a great time. But then sometimes you get catapulted again. So stop catapulting me when I'm getting used to my field.
Just like, not another one.
I just have an image of a little mole with your face on now, flying through the air, just like,
Or like its little hands going.
I think your new nickname has to be Catapulting Mole.
Let's write that down as a so when we do our end of year book club review, we're gonna have Catapulting Mole.
100%.
In which month was this mentioned?
What are we gonna cover, Janet? What happens to Mariam at the end, or is that going to be a separate thing? Because I have a lot to say about that.
That's actually something I forgot to write down, but we can definitely talk about it.
Well, you let us know when, because we're still covering men
since
at the minute.
We're kind of in the topic of the men, the only other man to talk about is Tariq, really.
I knew he was going to come back.
So so okay, I love him. Don't get me wrong, But as someone who doesn't often read romance, the idea of them being kind of like destined to be together since they're like kids, I don't know. I was just like, I mean, I love it in this case, but like,
beautiful to see childhood friends to lovers, because that's not as popular a trope as, say, enemies or rivals to lovers. So it was nice to see a different trope, especially seeing as how long they've been friends and seeing their relationship organically develop.
Yeah.
As they both grow up, I thought was such a breath of fresh air, and more things need to do that. Like, not just focus on the satisfying enemies to lovers. Yes, it's satisfying, but so could it be. And I don't think they were fated. I just think they had that spark, and it just naturally developed. That's the way I
guess as well, the sort of societal expectations, you know, when they start getting a bit older, they're like, oh, you're always with Tariq. Does that mean something, you know? And then, you know, because we're in her head, like hearing her narration, she's like, oh, I don't know, we're just friends. But then she's like, when they're at the cinema together, and they, I can't remember what happens exactly now, but you know, when they're at the cinema together, and
they're watching a couple of people kissing, and
that's
she just
oh
no.
Am I remembering correctly that he beats someone with his prosthetic leg?
Yeah.
That is like one of my favorite. Beating someone with your own prosthetic limb is just, that is one of my favorite tropes. I don't know if it's a trope, but it should be. It's like, I also did not expect him to come back. I thought he was like, for sure.
Oh no, I knew he was going to come back. It was too final. You know, it was too like, oh, I happened to meet this boy, and this, and this, and I was like,
all the other characters who have died, it's been very like, kid.
That's it.
Like,
bye.
I didn't think he was dead, but didn't know he'd come back.
Yeah, Janet and I were talking about this before everybody else joined the stream. That I was just like, is he dead? Is he not? It's very third person, but in reality, this sort of thing would happen. Like, you wouldn't like see this happen. You wouldn't see any proof that this had happened. You would just hear that this person died in this circumstance. A rocket hit the bus. Everybody died pretty much. It's normal in a war zone to have that sort of stuff. And I was using an example, like in the final episode of MASH, we're in the spoiler zone, so it's fine. Final episode of MASH, there are these Chinese prisoners of war who have been treated at the hospital, and they're on their way to go back to their country, like be traded for United Nations POWs. They either hit a landmine or they get hit by an RPG or something, and the only ones to survive the initial blast die as soon as they get back to the hospital camp, and it totally breaks one of the characters. Like, you never see him lose his composure, but he does at that point. So with this sort of thing happening in A Thousand Splendid Suns, with Tariq supposedly being in this lorry that got hit by an RPG, it's very reasonable that everybody would die, and this is the only way that, and the only thing that she would ever hear. She wouldn't have any proof and anything like that. So this would be as final as she would know, as she would get. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna believe it because of the historical setting. I'm not gonna believe artistic license. Believed artistic license.
Yeah. And the timing of it all as well, like obviously Rashid is like, oh, well, Layla's just been through this massively traumatic experience. Like, she's probably still in shock from it all. So she's going to believe anything that we tell her, kind of.
Yeah. And she's deaf in one ear, so we'll mishear everything as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But talking about Tariq and his prosthetic leg, isn't there a bit when Zalmai, I just found it really funny, and he's there like, I think it's after they've killed Rashid, I'm pretty sure, and they're like somewhere together, and he's just there like, yeah, my dad's gonna beat you up because you've only got one. I just found that really funny when he's just there like, yeah, my dad's gonna beat you up when he gets home. Like, just imagine this little 5-year-old like trying to be all like, you know, tough man and stuff. I don't know. I just thought, and then Tariq's just there like, okay, hun, okay. That's fine. I've been through things with my prosthetic leg. I can beat your dad up. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
I think Tariq's character is so not flawed, because I think I liked him, but it's flawed in the sense that he's portraying this hero and his steed, you know. But at the beginning, their relationship is so Taylor Swift, like the flashing of the lights in the window.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, no, I'm not. And you know, and then he's suddenly the best friend that's more, and then they're kind of building on it. But then at the end of it, when it all comes down to it, obviously then they sleep together because he's leaving, and then she's pregnant with his child, and it's all very kind of a jarring perspective or storyline to have submerged in this storyline, because it's so American high school, you know? And then all of a sudden he's there, and he's kind of like symbolic of the fight against the Taliban, because keeps coming back, and he survives everything, and he always comes back for Layla. And so I liked their relationship, because it was a little bit cliche, and you know, I'm not a fan of them, but it wasn't so much in the sense that I didn't like it. Like, I was actually happy that happened at the end, and I was like, this is right, this is good. And he's kind of refreshing. God, this stupid fly. He's so refreshing to have as a male character, and the way he treats Layla, just because of what you've been submitted to with Rashid and everyone else. So he's but then he's flawed physically, so it's kind of symbolic again in that nature of he's not perfect, but at least he doesn't, you know, beat you and lock you in a room and whatever else Rashid did and all that kind of stuff. So it's he's the lesser of everything, and I think it's a good he's a good character. I thought he was good to have in it.
Yeah, and I think we need that in this book, because there is just so much horrible stuff going on, you know. So like, it is a relief when he does show up, and you're like, thank God for that. Like, please just protect him. And like, you know,
like you're saying that Tariq is the lesser of like two evils, and I think when you first meet Rashid, you kind of imagine him to be the lesser of two evils, because Jalil is so unloving towards Mariam. You think, well, she sees Rashid as like, she doesn't have a choice, and like, at least she's going to go somewhere where someone wants her, and it's lesser of two evils there, when really it turns out to be the greater of two evils. And you're just like, it would have been you stayed in Guldamon and not gone to Herat in the first place. But yeah, it's that like choice between two evils, and I don't really think Tariq comes under the two evils sort of thing, but yeah, it's just interesting that the way you said it just made me think of that. So
yeah, he's very, like, he says at the end, he's like, I'd follow you to the ends of the earth, Layla, and it's so, oh, that's so nice, and you deserve that after everything you've been through. And even because she's kind of flawed in her appearance, isn't she? She's so worried about this lost tooth and things like that. It's like, but he's probably still going to think that you're gorge, and that's so he's kind of cringy, because personally, that's a bit cringe, but it's, you know, it's lovely.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah, literally. It's like, it's lovely because of what they've been through, and you're like, oh, he's so supportive of her, and this is what she deserves. And obviously he also takes in Zalmai as his own, you know, that's a huge thing. But yeah, for me it is a little bit cringy, because I can't deal with that kind of thing. But I think he's a good character. It's a good love story to have in it. It's not overpowering, is it? It's not like smushy.
It's almost like a C plot rather than a B plot. It's not like secondary to the we need to get away plot. So
well, I guess that leads us on to Mariam's final days. So who wants to start?
She runs away and is happy forever, and nothing bad happens.
Yeah, they all go to Pakistan. She's Layla's mum, sort of adopted mum. Like,
you need to stick a post-it at the point where they get on the bus. They're just like,
oh man.
It's like, and the driver was a really nice lady bus driver. She didn't say a thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's them all on.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because again, I'd forgotten there's the whole bit of her in the prison, and actually I'd highlighted a whole bunch of quotes of like symbolism with, like the last day, like when it says like this is the last time that she sees Layla, or
They turned the corner and Layla never saw Mariam again.
Yeah. And then there's like I don't know if it's the next chapter, I can't remember, but there's like shadows of like, bars, and it's all symbolic and all like you're just gonna go to prison. But then it's
Oh no.
Oh no, we've lost them all.
Oh no.
No.
Janet.
What a flattering picture.
I'm gonna be so happy with that one. Zoe, did you want to say your opinion to? Oh wait,
I'm back. My Wi-Fi. I was just sitting there doing this, waiting, and I was like, maybe I'll send a message. It's a bit unstable, so bear with. Like me. No, I'm joking. Sorry, had to do it. Okay, I think we're good. So, what did I say? I can't remember.
Mariam. Never
She's in prison.
She's in prison.
Yeah, and she's like this badass boss for killing her husband, and everyone's there like she's amazing. But I think she's just kind of at that point, like maybe wants that sort of adoration from these other women who've done all these like petty crimes, if anything. She would have loved that, but at this point, I think she's just so kind of emotionally broken. Like she just doesn't. I don't know. I think she's just so ready to leave in a way, and to accept her fate. I don't know.
So let everybody like talk about this, because I've got thoughts on this, and I know I'm going to go for quite a while. So
me too. So you guys crack on.
I'm going to be bringing up massive dissertation,
honestly.
It's in a football field, which is weird.
It was very sad, and the bit where her last thoughts before being shot and stuff. But it was all very sad. It was just really sad. I don't have big brain words to say on this, like Zoe and Jess seem to.
In fact, it was very it was a spectacle for people to see.
Very Nazi Germany kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting as well is how, like, I don't know, Mariam is just like the purest person ever. And even in those final days, she's not willing to lie about anything. She's like, no, I killed him. Like, he beat us up. He was going to kill us. This is what happened. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it was a mistake, because it wasn't,
She's the purest person, but according to society, she isn't. So, like,
yeah, exactly. And I think it takes a lot of courage for her to do that. I think if it was anyone else, probably would have just been there like, yeah, let's just up and leave, try and get as far as we can and start over again. Like, you kind of hope that they will. So yeah, I think it was really, I don't know, courageous.
I had the tiniest side note about Rashid that I was going to mention earlier and I forgot. I'm not defending him in any way, shape or form, because he's a monster. But there are those moments, there's like very small moments, apart from, ironically, not when he's being all flattery and lovely to Layla, because at that point you're like, you're a snake, you're an actual pig. But there are moments when I was like, specifically when he was walking them to the orphanage, I was like, that shows you have the slightest bit of humanity, that you are willing to take these girls to the orphanage, because he knows that they can't go on their own. He has to take them. And it's like, he could very easily just be like, she's gone, she's no longer my problem, she's not even my child, I don't care, and you are not seeing her. And it's like, and eventually obviously he does, and he's like, you can get killed if you want to go, but I'm not taking you. But there were those few moments where I was like, why are you? And when he takes Mariam to the hotel to find about his dad, I'm like, why are you doing that? Because that's actually a relatively nice thing for you to do. And it's like, but then it's open to interpretation and questioning, but then you're like, why are you like that? And then you're like, actually, I don't like you, so it's fine. But
to move, you give them something and then you take it away from them.
I thought the bit with the hotel, just to go off on that a second, is because Mariam probably was like, oh, he's probably like, she's calling to ask for some money, so that's probably the only reason he's going. He's like, oh, money, okay.
I thought she was going to ask for help. I didn't really put.
I assumed it was a financial help.
Yeah, it probably was. I didn't think about that.
And then at the end, when he has actually left her money, so that I don't know. That's the
You're probably right. You're probably right. Anyway, sorry to tangent on Rashid.
No, it's fine. I was going to say I just don't think they make it that clear, but that's the assumption that I had.
You're probably right.
What are your thoughts on like Mariam's final days? Because
mine's long.
Same.
What did Nori and Mariette? Did they finish? Did I cut anyone off? I'm really sorry if I did.
No, I think me and Nori
We didn't have much. We just said it was sad and it was a spectacle.
Yeah.
It is sad.
So we'll go make our cups of tea. You guys carry on.
No,
you need to explode.
Do you want to go first, though?
Yeah, mine's probably not going to be. I'm going to have to go back to my conversations with Janet because I've rambled. I had like a proper brainwave, and I was trying so desperately to get it all down before I forgot what I was thinking.
While you scroll, do you want me to go?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So I wrote a 20,000 word dissertation on martyrdom and female Christian martyrs, right? That's where my brain has gone. Maria is kind of like this martyr figure, especially given that she is executed in a very public place with an audience and things like this. And she kind of takes it into her own hands in that she's not dragged. She walks calmly to her death. And that whole line of, it was the last thing that she was told to do when she knelt on the ground, but she went to her death willingly. And in my mind, as I was reading that, all I could see was Vivia Perpetua in the 3rd century AD, who is a female Christian martyr and was the main subject for my master's dissertation, in that she was a Roman matron. She was very well respected within her within society, which is a little bit different to Mariam, obviously. But you still don't have a lot of female power within the Roman Empire. Like, it's still a patriarchal society, so you still have that women are seen and not heard. Even though she was slightly more upper class, she's still very much a stay-at-home woman and expected to look after the children, look after the house and things like this. And she goes against convention and against her husband's wishes by practicing Christianity. She gets arrested for it. She gets sentenced to death, and when she's in the arena, she just completely takes things into her own hands, and she goes to her death very willingly. She guides the sword to her own throat and things like this. She also gains sort of a celebrity within the martyrologies and the later centuries. She is sanctified. She is a saint, but also during that period, she has a level of notoriety. She has a level of respect as well. So just seeing Mariam like taking action and taking responsibility for her actions and not denying it, but being proud of it as well, of what she did, and her accomplishments very much reminded me of these female Christian martyrs and these people dying for a cause, because essentially that's what Mariam is doing. She is dying for a cause. She is dying to protect her loved ones, her family. And Lila, even though she's not her daughter, she treats her like a daughter. And it's just beautiful to see these sorts of correlations with the depiction of women and their bravery. Like, you would expect her to be scared, and she's going to her death. Like, this is like final. This is not something you can come back from. She has been disgraced socially, and she still goes with a level of dignity, and even the executioners show her some respect, which you also see in the Passion of Felicity and Perpetua. And I'm just like, my classics brain was loving it so much. Like, it's the saddest scene in the book, but my brain was just going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I don't want to write an essay on it, like just picking it apart and going back, and oh my god, that's my 2 cents, my rambly 2 cents. So,
and it's such an interesting take. I've not studied it, but yeah, what a way to think about it. Mine's very different, but again, it's from a analytical, symbolic English brain. Where was Janet? Also, let her come him up. She's gonna say, my dad's gonna beat you up. So obviously Mariam's death is just so sad. I was like, I mean, it's kind of a given, but it shouldn't be, if that makes sense. But I had this brainwave. I'm going to read this out, and I don't know if this makes sense because I just sent it to Janet in a massive ramble, so it could be wrong. But I said, Mariam has the moment of reflection when she's about to smack Rashid with the shovel, and she's like, hey, I didn't actually do anything to deserve these years of torture, which she doesn't. And it's like, and she finally does what she does as a moment of bravery and self-empowerment, and we're all like, yay, Mariam, you saved yourself, Layla, and the kiddos. However, she dies because she killed him, and she knows that she can never truly be free, brackets, be that in a life or of guilt. And the idea of running away and starting a life she deserves of peace and freedom is so close, and yet she knows she can never have it. So Rashid always knew how she acted, what she liked and disliked, what she would and wouldn't do because of the years of marriage, which you see a lot because he says, I knew Mariam was going to react like this. I knew blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, so Mariam dies effectively at the hands of Rashid, even in his own death, because she hands herself over, an action Rashid would have known she'd do in a similar situation. Not that he knew she did because he's dead, but in principle. So Mariam can never be free of Rashid, even in his death, because he has twisted her life so much that even in his death, he controls her and she dies because of him. Again, symbolically showing how men controlled women and how few rights they had. But the juxtaposition of this was that the old Taliban judge who shows a slight kindness and sympathy towards her, showing or foreshadowing the release of the control over women, but he says he's dying, which again shows how these newfound ideas or ideas of how women should be treated dies too. Then in capitals, Rashid is the symbol of all ill-treating of women, and Mariam died by his hand even though he was already dead. And then I sent a gif of Goofy falling asleep on the chair out of it.
Literally, yeah. I get what you're saying, yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like, even in his death, he's caused her death. And like she can never be free of him because he's got complete control over her. So even when he dies, she dies too.
Yeah.
And then it's reinforced by the end where he says, one last time Mariam did as she was told. End scene. And you're like,
while you were talking about that, I have another link.
Link
Don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. So let's go back to the beginning, kind of. Mariam as a child, her mum is always trying to protect her from the horrible men of the world, and when Mariam rebels, her mum dies. Then Mariam rebels as an adult by killing Rashid, and then she's trying to protect her sort of adopted daughter Layla and and then Mariam dies. Link.
She's
am I pulling straws here? But like,
no.
There are two people who are kind of like a mother figure who died trying to protect the next generation. From the horrors of the world.
Or whenever Mariam goes against convention or goes against somebody's wishes or goes against society's expectations.
Or when she just wants to do something for herself.
Yeah, someone dies.
Yeah.
Or it has that her actions seem to have like some of the most horrific consequences. So her mother's died, and then obviously her own death. It's woo. Let's have that list.
Yes, Mariette.
Very off topic from everything else, but I'm getting really tired and kind of hungry, so I'm going to shoot off now. But continue to keep discussing. I've said basically everything I can. Now you're going to bring stuff anyway. So,
I mean,
bye.
That's fair enough.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I do realise we've been going on for nearly 2 hours. So unless there's anything else,
and then there was 4.
Huh?
And then there were 4.
Oh. The judge at the Taliban judge is an interesting character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Janet, carry on.
No, it's fine. If you want to talk about him, I don't mind.
There's not much else to say other than he was, he shows her some kind of yeah, and then obviously, but he says he's dying, so it's like you're not going to have a say for much longer.
That's also like symbolic of the old regime dying.
Yeah.
And the new regime coming in.
Yeah, but like any kind of positivity towards women kind of dies with him as well. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
I might be thinking far too deeply into this.
Or like his death symbolizes that it's going to become more accepting.
Yeah,
he's paving that way, that road for it, because he's a respected elder.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of links on to like sort of my final topics. I kind of all link together in a way. All my arrows kind of point to each other. But it's kind of like about the ending, like overall, and like Afghanistan today, and will Afghanistan ever be at peace? Because the ending is really hopeful. Like they go back to Kabul after, was it like a year away or 2 years away, which again links to that poem about Kabul, like always coming back, and that's always going to be home in a way. But and also Layla references the poem, I think, again at the end.
Yeah, she does.
Talking about it, yeah. So I guess it's kind of, you know, with everything happening in Afghanistan today, like, and the last 6 months or so, I don't know, how important do you think books like this are? And I mean, I don't really know that many other books like this or any authors like this who kind of try and tell a real story of what's really happening in Afghanistan, because I think it might have been in the acknowledgements, I can't remember, but I think he does say, you know, it's for like voicing the unvoiced.
Yeah.
Like that.
He's giving a voice to the marginalized.
Yeah. And although there is and you know, it is really hopeful at the end, I think that makes it even more heartbreaking. I don't know how heartbreaking count. I need to sort of tally how many times I've said that. But yeah, it just makes it like even more sad that they've kind of, I don't know, it was so hopeful for quite a few years in reality with the Taliban, you know, kind of
losing their lead.
Yeah, whatever this is.
I think this is how circular, that's it, circular history, and how repetitive it can be, because there's so much conflict. Like, I often say that you can almost blame the Soviets for invading Afghanistan for a lot of this to happen, but there's always been unrest in any country. You'll always find someone who's not happy with how things are run, and someone thinks that they can do a better job, and you're always going to find stuff like that. But you sometimes have this catalytic event. So the Soviets invading in 1969, and their presence could be argued that is the catalyst for more extremist groups like the Taliban, like the Mujahideen, rising up to combat it and reinstate traditional Islamic viewpoints and aspects of society which are maybe less, I don't know whether liberal is the right word, but that are more restrictive on personal freedoms for women. And it just books like this demonstrate how often history repeats itself, and no matter what we do, people are almost doomed to repeat. And it's still hopeful, but so was Laila's mother. She was hopeful after the Soviets left. She was hopeful right up until her death that things were going to get better, and they just didn't. Marianne was hopeful that going to see her father would fix everything. It didn't. It made it worse. Laila was hopeful that, not hopeful, that Rashid would be a better option to her. And yes, potentially he was a better option than the brothel or street begging and things like that. She had a roof over her head and 3 square meals a day, but it wasn't really better in the end. And again, the patterns of abuse just keep repeating and repeating and repeating, just like the patterns of violence in history keep repeating and repeating. And it's just twigged to me how beautiful and symbolic that is. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Nice.
Fabulous book.
Nice.
It's fabulous.
I don't know how much like the book I remember reading last year, The Far Pavilions, is sort of based on actual wars and things that happened. So it's like about colonialism, and there's like this big bit about them trying to sort of white people trying to go, we're gonna help Afghanistan, and the main character, he goes, you cannot tame Afghanistan. It's like you can do everywhere else, but you cannot with Afghanistan. And it's like it ends up in that book killing all of the people who like went there as like a sort of to establish like trading peace envoys with like the British. They all end up dying because like of all these different things. And it's like, I don't know if that's based on anything, but like what the main character said. I can never remember the actual quote, but the fact is like, it's like, don't even try with Afghanistan. It's its own rich place, and you can't just go in and try to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Can we just agree that the British and colonialism fucked everybody up and everything up just for everything? Like, sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting now, like that, well, everyone has left Afghanistan, like the war's kind of officially over. I don't really know. But like now there's no one there to try and help anyone who is being sort of threatened by the authorities at the moment.
As soon as the forces pulled out, the Taliban was reinstated.
Yeah. And now it's like extreme poverty, extreme hunger, extreme everything.
All over again.
Yeah. So,
it's scary, isn't it? And you think about other things like the Holocaust or, you know, Stalin. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And now.
It's so scary.
Yeah, I think it's so important to read books like this just to kind of, even though it's fiction, you get an understanding of like a brief history of what everyone has been through. It's about the people, you know, and like at the beginning we're talking about it's like an ode to Kabul and Afghanistan. But it's also for the people and, you know, to make other people aware that like it has been like an ongoing cycle that's never ending. It's like never ending torture in a way. And none of the people have asked for this. So, I mean, obviously no one asks for war and stuff. But the fact is just, you know, one country, I mean, since like the 70s has been, you know, seeing war after war and, you know, for like people our age, that's all they've ever known. Like, yeah.
I'm just reading through what I said to you, Janet, was the fact that Khaled Hosseini is so, I said it's written in such an honouring way to the victims of violence and it's harshly accurate. And then I said, exposing the truth, but it's not, he's written it as in the sense of like, I'm not going to sugarcoat reality for the rest of the world and their precious minds, because I think people are so like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. It's too harshing for me. I can't deal with it. It's like, but it's true. This is actually happening to these people. And that's what he's written it with no intention of sugarcoating it, because it's like, this is the reality of so many millions. And, you know, you have to realize what position you're in and how you're not having to deal with this. I mean, you're aware of it, and it's, you know, you can support it in various different ways. I'm sure there's various charities or, you know, refugee things you can do, but it's, you know, you're not living it. And that's an incredibly privileged position to be in. And, you know, he's written this so honestly, the fact that, you know, even with Layla and what she tries to do with the coat hanger when she's pregnant with Zalmai, you know, that is horrendous. But
and I mean, being in that position where you even think about that, and obviously later on she's like, you know, grateful that she didn't you know, take that action, I guess. She's very happy, you know, she loves her son and it's all okay, but like, you know, imagine just being in the position where you're just so unhappy with the situation that you're in and there's nothing you can do about it. It's really harrowing, I think.
And I think the fact we talked about the fact that it's the fact that a guy's written this, but written it as from a female perspective, you know, because he's not afraid to give women voices, and that's what he's done with the whole book. And you know, not just women, everyone of you know, every kind of gender, but it's so empowering, the fact that a guy's written it, I think, in a kind of weird way, because he's not written it like, oh, look at me, I'm writing a great book and look at me, blah, blah, but he's just like written it from these women and how their lives are.
Yeah, and I think also it's important to remember this was published in like 2007 or something, or around that time. And, you know, obviously he had a lot of success with The Kite Runner, which was, I think, I have a feeling it was published around 2001 or just after. I can't remember if the Twin Towers was referenced, but like obviously,
they are.
I mean, like Islamophobia kind of kicked off. I mean, I was 4. I don't know if it was really a thing before then, but it definitely kicked off after that point. But I think luckily his book was so successful, and I think it's important that it was successful amid all of the Islamophobia and everything that's, you know, still unfortunately is present. So he can, he can, you know, give a voice to the people that sort of need it the most. And maybe at that time when he wrote this book, you know, there might not have been, I mean, I don't know, I'd have to research it. I don't know many Afghan women authors or anyone else who identifies in a different way than, you know. So the fact that it's a man, I think it's better than nothing. And he has written in a very, like we said, he's been very sensitive about, you know, a lot of the things that these people face on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I don't know, that's my thoughts. But yeah,
I feel like we could go on about this book forever.
Yeah, we could. I mean, we've pretty much done everything that I've written down. I've even added extras, which we've covered. So anything else you want to say?
I'll probably think of things tonight.
I'll be reading the rest of it. That's all I'm saying.
What did you froze, Jess? What did you say?
I was going to say, I'm going to be reading the rest of his books, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Convert.
I need to reread the other two that I've got. I think The Kite Runner is just one narrator, as far as I remember, and The Mountains Echoed is several. I think it's kind of like short stories, but they're all linked, kind of. So it's all, by the end, it's all kind of rounded. So if you like that, yeah. But I think it is quite different to the others. But anyway, I need to reread it. I remember I didn't love it as much when I first read it, but I can't remember what happens now. So yeah, it's about time. Anyway, but highly recommend.
Yeah.
And if you're interested, actually, speaking of Afghan related books, I have one which I read a long time ago. It's non-fiction, but it's written in a fictional way. It feels like you're reading fiction. So if you don't like non-fiction, that could be a good one if you want to read non-fiction. But it's called The Bookseller of Kabul, and it's by I think she's a Norwegian journalist who lived in Afghanistan with this family for a period of time and basically wrote this book about their lives. So it's about this guy who has a bookshop, as you can imagine. And yeah, again, I read this after I read A Thousand Splendid Suns. It kind of kicked off like I'm obsessed with Afghanistan and I want to read everything about it, period, of my life, when I was about 17 or 18. But yeah, again, need to reread it. But I remember really enjoying it, so that could be a really interesting one to look at from a different perspective. Anyway, so yeah.
I've put together a pretty comprehensive list of trigger warnings.
Okay.
So I think this is actually a nice segue into when we put up the post on our Instagram. In the caption. Janet has set us up an Instagram handle.
Oh yeah,
so,
I have. It's
now on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah,
me some Instagram.
It's, a Novel Bunch 21, because I was like, well, we started it in 2021, so there we go. And we've got our blue moustache logo with the books, so that's us. And if you want to follow us, please do. We have no posts as of today, but soon.
We're going to be doing a Meet the Bookstagrammer post. So I've drafted that already. I think you've done yours, haven't you, Janet?
Yeah.
So look out for those. And then obviously I want to do a stack photo of what we read last year. And then we'll do posts for obviously the book of the month that we're reading. And yeah.
Speaking of the book of the month, Nori.
Another
Take the Rain.
I love your copy, by the way. Mine's kind of
beautiful.
That's nice.
Thank you. I found it in a charity shop over a year ago, and I've been holding on to it. I'm like, I'm going to read this at some point. I'm like, well, I'm going to read this at some point. Why not force everyone else to read it? It's just one damned thing after another, which is exactly, that's why I bought the book. The title is why I bought the book, everyone. It's by Jodie Taylor. You can see that. And it's about time-traveling historians.
Can we just take a second to appreciate how ugly mine is in comparison to yours?
Oh, mine looks like yours, Janet. Mine's the same as yours.
I just
I've got
saw
a-
yours. I was like, hang on, wait. Why are yours nice? Anyway,
Mine's shiny.
I did
Mine's
get
the
it for
same as yours, Janet.
£2.50, so yeah, I'm not going
Yeah.
to complain.
Mine's only this shiny because it's got a library protector on it.
Fair enough.
It's a floppy
Yeah, it's
paperback. Man.
Yeah, mine's pretty floppy as well, to be honest. So, and it's small. I like that. I don't know. It's not that.
Damn.
Currently got my.
Have you
Winchester
started it,
Cathedral
Nori?
bookmark in it.
Oh,
You can't see it. I think that wait.
Oh yeah, I
I
can
can
see
kind
something.
of see it.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Winch.
Have you started it, Nori, or not?
Not yet. I have an intensive video planned for Valentine's Day, and I'm currently battling my way through books for that. But this
Okay.
will be the first one after I've got done with that, so then I can make notes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've got several other books. They're all up there.
Do you know roughly what it's about, or is it literally just the fact that you saw the title?
It's
to do with time
about
travel, right?
someone called Madeline Maxwell, who's recruited by St. Mary's Institute for Historical Research. She discovers that historians there don't just study the past, they revisit it, so there's time travel. It's like, but one wrong move and history will fight back to the death. And she soon discovers that it's not just history she's fighting. Follow the tea-soaked disaster magnet of the St. Mary's as they rattle around history, because wherever the historians go, chaos is sure to follow.
Love it.
Sounds fun.
Okay.
I just like the word tea-soaked disaster magnet, which I want on a t-shirt. That is my second title after Catapulted Mole.
Love that.
Okay.
I love
That
that.
is assigned to you entirely.
Mhm. So yeah,
I'm actually quite excited. The font doesn't look too big. The chapters are quite chunk. Or like, it's sort of about like 20 plus pages per chapter. Is what I'm getting at. And I don't know much about the author, but I see her name a fair amount. Just dotted around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
It's just
heard
one of
a
those
lot
authors where you're like, oh, I like the way you've spelt your name.
Fair enough.
I've also seen that there's a dramatis personae at the beginning of it, and
Yeah.
the villain is straight away.
Jodie
Literally
Taylor.
says villain.
Yeah, so this is February's pick.
Yes.
So if you do want to read with us,
Oh my
this
gosh,
might
Jess.
be a lot, but
The sixth chronicle is titled "What Could Possibly Go Wrong."
What?
This because this is a just one damn thing after another is one of a chronicle. I think it's the first one, isn't it?
yeah.
And the sixth one is what could possibly go wrong.
One damn thing after another. A symphony of echo, second chance, a trial through time, no time like the past, what could possibly go wrong, lies, damned lies, and history, and the rest of history. And the long and short of it is book 9.
I didn't know if you like.
These I'm seeing.
Oh,
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, they're nice.
They all look so nice.
She's
If
got
I
a good
really,
theme
really
going.
like this book, I may have to start the series.
Yeah, same.
Dangerous.
Anyway, so that is our book for February.
Yes.
Follow our Instagram at
Yeah.
21. That's our individual Instagrams as well. We'll be posting on there very soon.
Yeah, all links in the description if you want to follow anything or anyone.
We'll be back at the start of March for
Yes.
and just one
Much
another.
rain. Exciting. We've got a good year ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, very good year
It's
planned.
very exciting.
But yes, until then, stay safe. Thank you, Janet, for hosting a fabulous live. And we will see you all very, very soon.
Yes.
Safe people. And yeah. Bye-bye.